Good morning. Notice of time and place of these committee meetings was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald and the Nebraska Press Association, OPPD outlets newsletter, OPPD.com, and social media, by displaying such notice on the first level of OPPD administrative offices, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on March 13th, 2026. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection on OPPD.com and in this meeting room. Thank you all for joining us. As a reminder to those joining us on WebEx, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You are in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. Our agenda for today's meeting is as follows. We'll conduct a closed session this morning to discuss two topics: CEO growth and effectiveness update and Vice President General Counsel appointment and compensation. We'll conclude this morning's closed session no later than 9:50 a.m. in order to open the WebEx meeting to allow the public and OPPD staff to join. We'll begin the public session at approximately 10 a.m. and receive reports from each committee. Director Spurgeon, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
We do. I move that the board go into closed session at this time, 8:32 a.m. to discuss two topics. One, CEO growth and effectiveness update, and two, Vice President General Counsel appointment and compensation. With respect to CEO growth and effectiveness update, the closed session is necessary because the discussion will involve competitive and confidential compensation and retention information, as well as performance evaluation information, and to prevent needless injury to the reputation of Mr. Fernandez, as he has not reached a public meeting. With respect to the Vice President General Counsel appointment and compensation, a closed session is necessary because the discussion will involve competitive and confidential compensation information, and to prevent needless injury to the reputation of the candidate, as the candidate has not requested a public meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Director Bachman? Yes. Director Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Director Core?
Yes.
Director Howard? Yes. Director Hudson? Absent. Director Moody? Absent. Director Spurgeon?
Yes.
Director Williams?
Yes. All right, thank you. The motion to go into closed session is passed. This closed session will be limited to two topics: CEO growth and effectiveness update and Vice President General Counsel appointment and compensation. All right, thank you. Welcome back. A motion and second is required to reconvene in open session.
So move.
Second.
Director Bachman? Yes. Director Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Director Core?
Yes.
Director Howard? Yes. Director Hudson? Absent. Director Moody? Absent. Director Spurgeon?
Yes.
Director Williams?
Yes. All right, thank you. The motion to come out of closed session at 10:03 a.m. carried. This closed session was limited discussion regarding CEO growth and effectiveness update and Vice President General Counsel appointment and compensation approval. No votes or other board actions were taken. Notice of the time and place of these committee meetings was publicized by notifying the area news media, by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald and the Nebraska Press Association, OPPD outlets newsletter, OPPD.com, and social media, by displaying such notice on the first level of OPPD administrative offices, and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on March 17th, 2026. I'm sorry, on March 13th, 2026. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. As a reminder to those joining us on WebEx, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You're in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. We'll take public comments at the end of today's meeting, as well as the board meeting on March 19th, 2026, which will be conducted in person at the Omaha Douglas Civic Center and begin at 5 p.m. The public may attend in person or remotely via WebEx by going to OPPD.com. Joining me today in person are my fellow board members, Amanda Bogner, Mike Kavanaugh, Sarah Howard, Mary Spurgeon, and Eric Williams. John Hudson and Craig Moody let me know ahead of time they'd be unable to join. We also have members of our executive leadership team, Steve Bruckner with the Fraser Stryker Law Firm, our general counsel, and OPPD staff. Additionally, we currently have 21 attendees in this meeting, consisting of OPPD employees and members of the public. We'll begin today with committee reports and a review of board work plan items presented by the following directors: Director Spurgeon will report on governance. Director Williams on system management and nuclear oversight. Director Howard on customer and public engagement. I'll report for finance. And then the following committee reports will move into presentations on financial stewardship, oversight and monitoring, governance, and board matters. We'll conclude the day with public comments on items of district business. And Josh Clark is here to give the safety briefing, please.
Good morning, everyone. Because safety is our top priority, we begin each meeting with a few physical, cybersecurity, and psychological safety reminders. If you're not feeling well, hopefully you're not here, you're staying home, getting hydration and seeking any medical assistance as needed. We want to make sure you're aware of emergency exits. We have an exit over here to the back, and we also have a main exit to the front here. If we had to evacuate the building for any reason, I would ask us all to meet in the north parking lot so that we can make sure that everyone's safe. Also be aware of any first aid, AEDs, and fire extinguishers that are present. All of those are right outside this room here, directly to the left and at the main security desk. So if anybody needs any assistance during our meeting, please let us know and we'll get you help as quickly as possible. Severe weather, we immediately go out of the room and follow the directions of the security staff at the main desk who would show us to the shelter. Always keep your area free of slip, trips, and hazards. Make sure that you're staying alert to changing conditions. It's cold today, but later this week, we're going to be in the 80s, typical Nebraska weather. So be prepared for those transitions. Also today, as we all know, is a pretty big day. So just be a little bit more careful as you're driving around the city because there might be quite a bit more traffic out there today. So watch out for that. Be ready. Also, if anybody needs any help, again, as I mentioned, please let us know. For cybersecurity awareness, be cautious with suspicious emails and unknown links, especially in today's age with what's going on inside this entire world. Suspicious emails can be the cause of something major within major systems. So always be cautious of any suspicious emails. Don't click anything that seems untrustworthy. Use our official alert button in Outlook for those of us in OPPD. And then during any types of meetings, always identify anybody that has an unknown phone number if it is a virtual meeting. Psychological safety is essential for productive collaboration. Encourage curiosity and continuous learning. Speak and act with respect. Embrace constructive conflict. Value diverse perspectives. Build trust through transparency and give everyone a voice. Always remember OPPD's core values. We have a passion to serve, honor our community, and we care for one another. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll start with the committee reports. And first up, we have Director Spurgeon.
Thank you, Chair Core. The governance had their pre-committee meeting on March 10th, 8 in the morning, following a safety briefing and a review of prior month's pre-committee action items. We talked about the general counsel appointment and compensation approval, which we will hear more about later today. We've had did an ethics report. No violations on the part of any directors, members of the board were received since last month. Then we had a legislative update with Mr. McErady. Following that, reviewed a board resolution honoring the service of Dennis D. Jorgensen, and we will hear more about that at the full board meeting on Thursday night. Following that, we reviewed the Strategic Foundation Monitoring Report. Again, that's a report that will be given to the full board later in this meeting. A little discussion about phase 2 of the governance process and board linkage monitoring process pilot. I distributed some further information about how to operationalize that to all of the members of the board following that meeting. And I'll have a little tweaks and suggestions particularly for committee chairman to review as we again continue to do this in April, May, June, and probably August. But you can look forward to have that being on an item for review and evaluation in preparation for our board governance workshop in August. We had a look at the governance committee planning calendar. And governance committee items. GP10 was discussed, which is a chore for a couple of members of the board. So we talked a little bit about that, about the outcomes desired for training additional training for board members. So we'll be talking more about that. We had a brief summary of the meeting and had about 2 minutes for open discussion. There wasn't enough time to get into anything particular, but I will share with you that Vice President Foch invited all of us to start thinking about the governance workshop in August and what we might want to address during that time. So fellow governance members, have I missed anything?
I think it was great.
Okay, thank you very much. Back to you.
All right, thank you. Director Williams, please.
Great, thank you. The Systems Management Nuclear Oversight Committee met on March 2nd. The agenda is on the screen. We started, similar to other committees, with a discussion about the committee charter. We didn't see any need for changes currently, but we did flag that language related to nuclear oversight will likely be updated in 2027 based on successful status updates related to Fort Calhoun Station. So we anticipate that being part of the charter review and update probably next year. We had an update on transmission projects. There's a significant amount of transmission work going. We specifically discussed the Cass to Nebraska City and Arboreta to Midtown transmission projects. This included timing, scope, routing, siting, and public involvement. There are additional transmission projects, all of which are available for public information on the OPPD Community Connect page. So thank you to staff for having that information available so that the public can be aware. These are projects on which people are significantly interested. And so good that the Systems Committee is aware. Also appreciate that this information is being shared in a way that people can both learn about the projects and ask questions if they have any. So there's a lot of information again on OPPD Community Connect about all of the transmission projects. Generation reliability update was presented by staff. We talked about plant reliability, the drivers of performance, and actions underway to improve performance. All of this is leading to the anticipated SD4 monitoring report, which will be presented in April. So we'll talk a little bit more specifically in the Tuesday all committee meeting about the generation reliability as part of that monitoring report. We talked about site visits. So directors who are not on the systems committee, if there are any locations that you would like to physically go to in person and see, please let us know. We provided some potential locations for site visits that directors would like to visit this year. But if you have other suggestions, feel free to reach out to me and we can make sure that we get some of those coordinated for everybody to see parts of the district that we don't get a chance to go to often. We received an additional update about the AMI program. Things continue to move forward. We talked about the transparency related to the rollout. So some meters have been deployed now, more will be deployed in the future. And the systems committee continues to talk about the technical aspects related to AMI, where the Customer and Public Engagement Committee talks about some of the customer-facing engagement opportunities on AMI. One of the larger items of the discussion was the Integrated Systems Plan update. So we spent a good amount of time talking about preliminary information related to the planning that will go into the first public workshop coming up on March 24th, and how the public will be involved, and then what that means for board members to be part of that process on the first workshop and future workshops that will be announced going forward. Additionally, we had a relatively lengthy discussion about several SPP policy updates. They are related to demand response and the performance of demand response and how that will impact our programs now and how we plan for the future. So there's a lot of information related to SPP policy updates. I think we also talked about that last month. So SPP is changing things, hopefully for the better, and staff is doing a good job of understanding that and incorporating that into our planning. Again, lots of technical information about what SPP policy updates are being implemented and what we should know about them. So that information is in diligent available for board members to look at. And then we have some board action items scheduled for today, one specifically related to a real property asset. And that was the end of the meeting. So if any directors not on the systems committee, directors on the systems committee, do you have any additional information? Okay. Any other directors have any questions for the systems committee about what we talked about? Things moving forward. Great. Well, thanks very much. Back to you, Chair Core.
Awesome. Thank you. And on to Director Howard, please.
Thank you, Director Core. The Customer and Public Engagement Committee met on March 9th at 4 p.m. We received a legislative update. We talked through an educational opportunity that Tim's going to offer to board members around strategic customers, specifically data centers and large customers, And then we received a verbal update on our customer satisfaction results. The thing that I'll highlight is number 4 on your screen. We are going to review SD11, which is about economic development. We had some interest from our last governance session, and so we're going to try out a new process that Scott Foch created to review SD11 and make any changes or tweaks that the board feels necessary. That's what we got.
Awesome, thank you. Right, on to me. So we met on March 6th. Everybody was present at that meeting. We were provided an overview of the rates work that's coming up for the next 2 years. The scope and timeline and board approval requirements were included in that. For folks that aren't on the finance committee, the couple things coming up on the work plan for 2026, SD2 will be reviewed. We'll do some consideration of how we handle credit and debit card fees, how we handle situations where our folks at OPPD are unable to access meter equipment. We'll talk about the TVR pilot, and then a recommendation by Brattle for irrigation rate changes. We also talked about further work out in 2027. If interest in that, you can check into Diligent, please. Let's see. Talking about, we discussed charter revisions and made a few changes that'll come forward for board approval. We discussed our use of Brattle. It was recommended to us that Brattle's performing at a high level. The team's happy with Brattle. They suggested the risk to, if you switch consultants to a different group, it would impact the TVR pilot and a couple other risks to continuity, things like that. But generally, everybody at OPPD is comfortable with Brattle and happy with their work. But if people have questions about additional support that we could receive from rate consultants above and beyond what we are now, please let somebody on finance know, probably Director Moody. And then we talked about the 2025 annual financial report, but I'll leave it there because we'll see more on that later today. So, that's all I have for finance. Does anybody else want to add anything? Okay, any questions? Great, thank you. Then I will, yeah, let's go ahead.
Really quick, our Chief Financial Officer, Brad Underwood, is not available today. He's in New York City attending an investor conference and representing OPPD, and I'm sure that we're talking to investors and rating agencies, et cetera. And so we have the very capable hands of Ms. Laura Langford, our Director of Corporate Accounting, to present us the 2025 financial report.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron, for bringing that up. So this is the annual financial report. This is a scorecard that just really gives us a snapshot of how we ended the year. It's a comparison to our budget. I did just want to mention, though, that this Thursday, the Risk Committee will be receiving an update from our auditors, so that they're wrapping up the audit of the 2025 actual results. We have the annual report as well that I will share. At that time, that is really just looking at a year-over-year comparison, but today we'll focus a little bit more on budget. So just wanted to start off by saying, overall 2025 did have some financial challenges. We kind of identified that early in the year that we were forecasting that retail revenues maybe were not going to be as strong as we'd hoped they would be. That prompted us to then put in some cost savings measures just to make sure that we were able to meet our financial goals. We then had a couple of significant storms. We had the March blizzard, the August storm. But in spite of that, with those cost savings measures in place, and we had some fourth quarter tailwinds with retail revenue, we did end the year in a strong financial position. So as a result of that, we were able to replenish the rate stabilization reserve. So you might remember in 2024, we used $13.3 million out of that reserve to help our results. We were able to replenish that. And then we were also able to make a transfer to the debt retirement reserve of $29 million. And that's a newly established or a reestablished reserve that we have in place that'll help us in the future as we try to meet those increasing debt service costs as we're issuing more debt and balance that with our retail rate increases. So overall, it was some challenges, but we made it through those and ended the year in a positive position. So, all right, so we're going to go into a couple more details here a little closer. So we'll start in the upper left. We have retail revenues. You can see there that retail revenues are under budget year to date about $73 million, but there's a couple of components impacting that. Part of that is we had the over collection in our purchase power adjustment clause, and so that was $38 million that we recorded at the end of the year that reduces our retail revenues. And then that $29 million addition I mentioned to the debt retirement reserve that also reduced retail revenues. The other component of that is just the variance that we had in our retail revenues. So if we look at residential, commercial, industrial at the end of the year compared to budget, we're actually pretty close to budget, only about 1.5% difference. So we had, as I mentioned, some fourth quarter tailwinds. And Erin, if you wouldn't mind going to the last page. I also just wanted to point out, we won't spend time on it here, but on the third page of this scorecard, and we only include this in the annual, we do have information on each of our major categories of retail revenue, not only comparing budget, but also the prior year, both from a revenue perspective and then also from a usage perspective. And so definitely you can see that year over year comparison, we did see growth across all customer categories. So very positive year from retail revenue, even though we were slightly under budget. Go back up to the first page. All right, so then staying on the left-hand side, moving down one to off-system revenue. So off-system revenue, we were over budget, about $104 million. This was from higher congestion hedging revenue. That was fairly consistent throughout the year that we were continuing to receive that revenue, which does help offset the higher purchase power costs that we experienced. Which moving over to the right there in fuel and purchase power, we were over budget in this category, about $94 million. We were over budget on the purchase power side, and that again is from congestion hedging. So we have those, we're receiving revenue. We also have the costs that we're paying for that. And then we also had higher market prices as well. Fuel was actually a bit under budget. We had overall lower generations. Those offset each other, but we were overall in that category about $94 million over budget. And then moving up to the upper right, O&M expense, you can see here that we are under budget. This is excluding purchase power and fuel. We were over budget about under budget about $29 million. This is primarily from lower outage costs, but then we also were seeing the impact here of the cost savings initiative that we put in place. And I just want to point out in the fourth quarter, it looks a little odd. It's pretty under budget for the fourth quarter. And that is where we had the impact of using regulatory accounting for our storm costs. So the board approved that for the March and August storms that we had, as we're getting FEMA reimbursement for those. So in the fourth quarter, we removed that from distribution expense, recorded that as a regulatory asset. So that's why we see that difference in the fourth quarter there. And then if we go down to the bottom of the page of other income and other expense, from another income perspective, we were over budget about $52 million. This is where we had higher allowances for funds used during construction or AFUDC, and that's just due to the higher construction balances that are subject to that. And then we also had higher investment income as well. Market rates were up, and so that impacted us positively there. And then over to the right, other expense, we were under budget here, about $15 million. This is from lower interest expense, and that was just based on the timing of our debt issuances we had during the year. Any questions on this page before we go to the page? Okay. All right, so on the left-hand side, we have operating income and net income. You can see that our operating income is under budget for the year, about $30 million. That's from the results I just talked about, primarily boiling that down to lower retail sales offset by some of the cost savings that we had. And then on net income, we were over budget, $34 million, but this is where we see that impact of higher investment income, higher AFUDC revenue, and then that lower interest expense that offsets that operating income. And then on the right-hand side, we have our cash balance and our capital spending. From a cash perspective, we did have higher balances at year end than we had anticipated in the budget. That's just due to the timing of the debt issuances we had. We had a very late fourth quarter debt issuance. And then on capital spending, you can see we were over budget here, about $234 million. Did want to point out that this includes capital prepayments. And so we were over budget at the end of the year. And that's just due to the spending that we had on our new generation projects. And then to round out this page on the bottom left, we have our SD impact that had that financial component. So on SD2, when we look at rates from that defined regional average based on final EIA data, we are 18.7% below. And on the annual scorecard, we add in the national average. We report that on our annual report, and that's based on preliminary EIA information, and we're 30.2% below the national average for our retail rates. And then on SD3, our debt service coverage was at 2.0 times, which is right on the target of where we want to be at year end. And then we continued that strong cash position that we have with 250 days of cash on hand at the end of the year.
Quickly, if you can go up on the upper income, a good lesson, and now go back to the previous slide. There. Operating income Q3 of 2025, Laura, why is that bar significantly higher and the blue dot significantly higher than the rest of the quarters?
That Q3 is when we have our hot summer months and we have additional retail revenue that we plan for just higher usage.
So that's an important reminder to to the public and to the board that it's that Q3, it's that the summer period, which is incredibly important for our financial performance. So that's why you see a lot of us planning and doing a lot of financial planning from Q1 and Q2, getting ready for that July 1st through September 30th timeframe, when we need to have all of our transmission assets in good shape, all of our generation assets in good shape to make sure that we're not only serving our customer owners, but this is where our customer owners need us the most. As time has gone by, now the winter months are starting to become more and more important. But I think this graph just tells the story of why that summer period is so important financially for the district.
On the lower end, the capital spends, I guess I can see the numbers on the screen. They're a little different and diligent, but you highlighted that the capital spend was higher than the budget. Can you clarify that was additional expense or that was early expense relative to the timeline of deployment of projects?
Early expense.
Okay,
That's a good clarification. Yes.
so we're not spending a couple $100 million more than we were expecting. It's in 25 rather
Yeah.
than 26.
There's probably some mix of that as some costs are coming in higher, but a lot of it is there.
No, so it's both. One of the reasons why we implemented the cost savings initiative last year was because we planned our 2025 capital budget was planned sometime in the April, May of 2024 timeframe. So our engineers, our financial planners, they're estimating, okay, so how much work it's going to go into the 2025 capital plan. We estimate the work, and some of it is we start to bid it out in the fall and winter of 2024. The majority of it came in 2025, and this is where we basically had for the same number of projects, same scope, same everything. Costs came in about almost $300 million higher than what we had budgeted. That was one of the main reasons why we implemented the cost savings initiative. Now, at that point, we decided, okay, we need to start deferring projects, and we ranked them all by prioritization, by risk, and we deferred a lot of projects. But the cost of the remaining projects was higher than what we expected. That's what you see here. We were able to bring in some projects from 2026 into 2025, and that happened later in the year. But the main part of the story is it costs us more to build the same projects that we were planning a year and a half ago. That's the inflation component. To offset the annual expense that these additional costs, capital costs created, that was the main reason by which we enacted that cost savings initiative to make sure that we could offset that. And at the end of the day, it all worked out exactly according to plan. We ended up being able to replenish our rate stabilization account. We ended up with 2 times in service coverage. But had it not been for that active management that Laura and Brad and their team did, it would have been a much more challenging end of the year.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess the question then would be, our budgeting process begins in the first half of the year, and the additional capital spend numbers here were in the second half of the year. So now that we're in 26, we have updated our capital project estimates to be reflective in the 26 budget. So we are not anticipating the similar type of capital cost exceeding budget this year.
So we learned our lessons from last year, and I mean, this is just as time goes by, we know we used more conservative assumptions on inflation. Tariffs were something that hit us really hard in 2025, and it created a lot of volatility. It may still create volatility, but we are assuming a lot more conservative assumptions on tariffs and prices and timelines for delivery. I feel, and I'm guessing the team shares these, I feel much better informed, and I think our budget today, of course, we only have 2 months behind us, is tracking much more closer to actuals. But I say these with a grain of salt because, again, inflation and tariffs and geopolitics could really disrupt these at any moment.
So I guess for where we are now, increased fuel prices, are those being updated into our financial projections?
They are. We've actually, I've had more conversations about fuel prices these last week than I've had in the past 6 months. Our forecast today, and we are not seeing any changes in natural gas prices and forecast. All of our vendors and experts in that sector are telling us that they are not expecting to see major changes. Now, again, these changes by the hour. But natural gas prices domestically are still pretty flattened. We have good domestic production. What could disrupt natural gas prices would be a massive export of gas via LNG to other parts of the world that could potentially make those molecules more scarce in the US. So far, yes, we're seeing a little bit of pressure, but nothing to be concerned. I don't know.
No, I think you hit it right. It's more like fuel oil, gas, gas for your vehicles. Those are the kind of things I think we're keeping a closer eye on.
Diesel, so transportation costs are coming up higher, but fuel for generation plants is not, it's not necessarily going up right now.
And we buy a lot of that ahead of time, right? So we're in pretty good shape there. Supply chain can give you more information about that. But, amount of LNG that can leave the United States is limited. There's only so many export facilities, so we would expect it to stay relatively reasonable.
We'll keep you updated because this is changing.
Yeah, so we're not expecting, domestic claims of force majeure or anything like that to break contracts for long-term fuel hedging that we have had for our generation fleet, because again, as far as fuel costs go, that's significantly larger than our other fuel costs, right? So
Coal's our largest by far. Natural gas is still relatively minor.
So one of the benefits of having diverse fuel sources, yeah, coal is our largest.
Okay.
Again, other than transportation of those commodities, the commodity itself, we're not seeing that huge volatility.
Thanks.
So
Appreciate the
far.
clarification. And I'm sure we'll hear another update next month and every month. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's move to Mr. Foch for SD1, please.
Good morning. As a strategy guy, I always love SD1, the strategic foundation, because it really does reflect everything that we are doing as a utility. If we go to the next slide, our mission really defines for the public and everyone who we are and what it is that we deliver. Our vision indicates what we're aiming towards, how we intend to become over time. In our case, our vision is also augmented by PF 2050, which is a much more in-depth vision document available online. And then our values indicate how we show up and how we behave. And throughout the course of the year, I think we've struggled a little bit every once in a while with showing how do we show all that we do, all that we're becoming, and how we behave along the way, and in a way that is tangible and clear and crisp. And the wonderful news on the next slide is that the board throughout the year, month after month nearly, is always monitoring, like it is today, one of these policies and how we're doing. And each time you monitor it, it provides an opportunity to go into depth about the activities that bring our mission, our vision, and our values to life. And for most of the policies, that would be 12 of the 15, the board, in reviewing them, accepted them, finding OPPD to be sufficiently in compliance with the policies as stated. And again, each one of these could be driven down to some level of detail to bring to life our mission, our vision, and our value. If we go to the next slide, there were 3 throughout the course of the year where just looking at them and understanding that there's very tangible measures within each that we didn't quite hit the metric, but that certainly didn't mean that we weren't delivering upon aspects of the policy in very meaningful ways, such as reliability. The thing that we had missed here more was the equivalent forced outage rate. It was below target, and we recognized the need to improve the reduced forced generation outages. At the same time, one could see and feel the reliability of the service delivered to the district throughout the review period. Safety was another one. There's an opportunity to improve the DART, our performance in DART, which is days away, restricted and transferred. Our target is 0.50, and at year end we were at 1.02. Now throughout the year we win awards. We're showing and highlighting how very safe we are. We begin meetings with safety, and we take it quite seriously. Again, a testament to who we are becoming, and our values. And then finally, the employee relations. We have a target to be top quartile performance in terms of engagement. And we achieved 70.7 at a score of 70.7, which put us in second quartile. So we missed the mark, which led us to be in this space here. But again, you can listen to Javier on a monthly basis speak to all of the things that we do to engage as an organization, both within our community and within internally, to make sure that this is one of those best places to work. Just on a personal testament, I would say that of the many places I've worked in Omaha, I would describe OPPD as one of my favorite and best places to work. The other thing, if we go to the next slide, on a monthly basis, you will receive this as a way of monitoring. This is our corporate scorecard. And so for those policies where we do have measures and we are monitoring, so we provide a scorecard and an updated scorecard. As you can see here, this reflects the performance that I indicated earlier. I would acknowledge that reliability, the SAIDI metric, is lower than it was when we reviewed it, and we're working on it. There's significant efforts being made and investments being made to ensure that we continue to perform in terms of our SAIDI, or reliability metric. This monitoring report has been reviewed. If we go to the next slide, with the governance committee. And I would turn it over to Director Spurgeon at this point to see if there's any comments or any questions that you would have.
Other directors? I might ask you just to expand a little bit on the SD4 reliability, EFOR, and what that means, what that's about, because that's another red one.
Vice President Vi, who is sitting right next to you, owns this measure, as we all are owners of our own measures. I will let him speak to this.
Very good. So that is the equivalent forced outage rate. And so it's a measure of, was the generation there and available when you expected it to? So unplanned outages, things that you don't expect to happen, that happen to you, cause that rating to go up, which is a negative indicator of performance.
How does that happen? Unplanned outages.
So you have something that breaks that you didn't, that you had assumed would be working. If you had rivers freeze, if you had, a piece of equipment switch yard fail, things of that nature would result, a tube leak would result in a forced outage.
So things get old, things break, or nature happens. And
we have planned outages each year, where we look at the resource and we try to predict what items need to be replaced in a certain period of time. I will say those outage windows that we used to have were pretty wide. They're being narrowed because of the state of the U.S. grid, and the fact that where you used to be able to do some of the maintenance over the winter time, you can no longer do that with the extreme weather we've been seeing, with lack of margin. So those windows get smaller. So you try to stack as much in those as possible, but inherently you don't replace everything, and you have issues during the year. Age, replacement factors, things of that nature have quite an impact.
It's probably one of the biggest risks, comments that I hear in the industry, is that shortening of the maintenance window across the footprint, SPP. And I think to Troy's point, we have significantly less time to do maintenance. So you're only gonna do what's absolutely needed. And unfortunately, what it manifests itself in. Now, on the positive side, Troy, can you talk a little bit about these forced outage rate in our balancing generation? Because that used to be less desirable, and your team has done a lot of work.
That's improved significantly, especially starting reliability. I think last time I saw we were at 98% starting reliability with peak and fleet. It used to be quite a bit lower than that just a few years ago. We spent a lot of time replacing parts and asset management programs and winterizing and all that activity. What you see here is somewhat weighted by the size of your generation fleet, and it does not include any renewables because we don't own those. Those are just our facilities. I will tell you, when we look at the forced outage rate across the United States as a whole, everyone is trending the same way. Part of it's age, part of it's this tightening window, and so it's definitely a focus that U.S. grid needs to have over the next few years to make sure that we have a reliable system. And that's why you're seeing margin being pushed by the different regional entities to help make sure that utilities have more margin in the space.
Scott, you mentioned related to the metrics here that things were different than what was monitored. We reported in the monitoring report. So what we're seeing on screen says 23, 24, 25 are the numbers for safety, EFOR. Those were from the monitoring report approximately 10 months ago, or those are updated numbers?
These are year-end numbers. I'm sorry, I clipped you.
No, that's right. I just wanted to make sure we understand because we're going to have the SD4 monitoring report next month. So we are functionally at the end of a year, but this information is different than what was presented at the last SD4 monitoring report like 11 months ago.
That's exactly right. So what you'll have seen is a deterioration, if you will, in terms of SAIDI.
Yeah.
From that last monitor report to now. So that's what I was really attempting to indicate. And I don't know, Troy, if you have any comments on SAIDI at this stage, or if you want to save the gunpowder for next.
No, I mean, for me, it's fine. It's pretty much all tree related. So we've been talking about that as an organization, to invest more in tree trimming than we already have. If you remember, we stepped up some the last couple of years. We're looking at growth rates, which are coming in higher than we expected. And so there very well may be a need to add additional funds to reduce, because equipment failures and things of that nature have actually gotten better. And it's the tree related damages. We've also had a lot of very large storms in the last couple of years, which is impacted the tree infrastructures to weakening those. And so at the next weather cycle that you have coming through there sometimes will cause limbs to fall and trees to fall. Probably wouldn't have been otherwise had they not been damaged during some of the ice and extreme storms that we've had the last couple of years.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I know we're going to talk about this next month, so we'll have plenty of time for that.
A lot of detail next month.
But appreciate the clarification. And again, essentially because safety, and EFOR all have ended up in each of the last 3 years that we're seeing on screen. And I guess, again, we'll have updated numbers next month. So felt like something to keep in mind as we discuss this. What should we do to try and address what is both in the SD4 monitoring report, but then at the end of the year, the areas where we had the most challenges related to the SD1 summary are generally in that area. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, directors, this is a nice, this backward view over all the work and review that has been done in 2025. So the committee did come out with a recommendation that this be approved. Any comments? Thank you.
Are there any reflections on what's been accomplished? That wonderful slide we have at the end after the.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And the next item, Jake Earl will be. I realize my name is up here, but. Go ahead, Jake. Jake is our manager of real estate and land management, real property. Thank you.
Good to see you all again. Jake Farrell, Real Property and Land Management for OPPD. Thank you, Scott. This is more of a cleanup item for us. Back in May of 21, Sarpy County came to us and wanted to acquire some property. They're doing a road expansion out near 180th Giles Meridian Road areas. And it looked like there was some property swap ability for us to trade property with them to make this work. Since then, the road work has been done. It's been determined by Sarpy County that they would rather keep the property they were going to swap with us. So they have proposed to acquire the property they needed from OPPD to expand their road. So it's a little over 2 acres of property. Some of that is already what we call road right of way. So back when section line laws were put into place in the late 1700s and 1800s, 33-foot of easement was given on section lines. So they don't pay for that. It's already road right of way, which is why you see the reduction of 1.379 acres. So this was valued at $57,610 by a certified general appraiser. So our recommendation to the board is to sell this property to Sarpy County for the road expansion. With that, I'll take any questions.
I might ask our general counsel to explain why it is that I mean, $57,000 is significant, and certainly it's something over which we generally have oversight as management, but there is a very specific reason this type of sale comes to our board. And you do such a good job of defining that, Steve, if you wouldn't mind just providing that, because I know the question has come up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Foch. And the reason is that from the transfer of real estate title standpoint, you cannot get title insurance unless you have a corporate resolution to sell property. Oddly enough, in the view of some, you don't need the same thing to buy property if you're a corporation, but you always have to have a corporate resolution to sell property in order to be able to pass good title and have insurance. I hope that answers the
It
question.
certainly does. Thank you. I know.
So that wasn't just our board policy.
No, it's, and it's not really even truly a law as much as it is Mr. Farrell knows so well. I mean, is really a title standard. What used to in the old days be called a title standard. Simply can't transfer property without that corporate resolution. So, there you go.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you. Mr. McAree.
Good morning, everyone. We will give an update into that. I'll call Brooke Aiken, who's our Director of Economic Development and External Relations, to the podium. Been a very active legislative session. If you're following that, it continues, and they're heavy into budget discussions now. So we want to give an update on things particular import to OPPD. Brooke?
All right, thanks, Tim. Good morning, everyone. The legislature's on day 44 today of the 60-day session. So we're nearing the finish, 16 days left. All-day floor debate began on March 3rd. Late nights start on Wednesday this week. So we're hoping that a lot of the bills get through, but there's a potential that not all of the priority bills will be heard on the floor. And as Tim alluded to, the topic of focus has really been centered around the budget. Floor debate last week focused on the mid-biennium budget adjustments, and lawmakers advanced the second bill in the state budget package on March 11th. There's still about $125 million on the budget gap that will be addressed likely this week. They're really focused on second round debate on this week, and lawmakers are really working toward final passage of that budget by the March 25th deadline to send it to the governor. So the next slide hits on legislative bills that are really active this session. This is our primary slide for today, and we'll cover other bills of interest too and the status of those. So LB 1010, we've supported this bill, really working closely with the Nebraska Power Association on it. This bill advanced to select file. It creates a regulatory framework for privately developed battery storage. In addition to the NPA, there are several stakeholders involved in senators, and it requires private developers of large battery storage facilities to obtain Power Review Board approval and demonstrate contractual arrangements with a Nebraska public power supplier. And the amendment removes a joint application requirement and exempts battery storage projects from public power eminent domain authority. It also includes the adoption of two different bills, LB 1064 and LB 1111. So as part of this from the Natural Resource Committee, there's some language that's added from both of those that hits on provisions creating the Large Load Customer Regulation Act. This 1064 bill was introduced by Boastar, as you might recall, requiring public power utilities to set standards for customers with loads over 20 megawatts. LB 1111 was introduced by Kavanaugh. That established new requirements, mostly reporting requirements for large electric loads, primarily centered around data centers. So there's a lot of action on this one on Thursday last week. It passed on the first round. No one was against it. It was a 27-0 vote. So more to come on this bill ahead. LB 1033, we worked with Senator Spivey on this bill. It authorizes the Department of Health and Human Services to provide up to $800 per program year. It's currently at $500, and with everything involving rising costs, we really thought this was an important bill for our customers involving crisis assistance payments under the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, otherwise known as LIHEAP. There wasn't any opposition to this bill. It was a pretty clean bill, and we're hoping for consent calendar placement because of that. So Speaker Arch has been contacted, and we're waiting to learn more. LB 1261. This bill was introduced by Senator DeKay in the governor's office. It's currently a priority bill from Senator Mosier out of Columbus. This allows large loads greater than a gigawatt to work with private generation in coordination with a public power utility. It basically allows for the waiver of eminent domain for these types of projects to come to fruition. We were actively at the table as a stakeholder in this process. We've supported this bill to ensure the structure is viable and feasible while protecting public power. It's on general file. It's actually on the agenda today. That's why you get me here. Seth and Randy are very focused on this in Lincoln. If it doesn't happen today, it's expected to be on the floor this week. There's a lot of amendments and motions that were filed on this. So it's anticipated to take up a lot of time among senators. There's a potential for filibuster here. So we'll stay tuned on this one. LB 964.
So-
Yes, please.
Comments now or at the end, or what's
Go
best?
for it. Yeah.
Okay, so two bills there, and I had questions about the eminent domain. So 1261 allows for waiver of eminent domain at the discretion of the public power utility where the project would be located.
That's correct.
And then back to 1010, that requires eminent domain waiver, or that also would, that authorizes through legislation eminent domain waiver, or that would require local eminent domain waiver by the utility where the project is located?
It exempts battery storage projects from public power eminent domain authority. So
Entirely without action by the utility.
So there has to be an agreement and there has to be power review board approval.
Okay. Yeah, because there's been a lot of discussion about eminent domain authority for public power this session. And so I'm very glad to hear that our engagement is focused on protecting public power, specifically in 1261. That's always been my primary interest there. I'm glad to hear that. Interested in how the discussion and potential action goes there. There were several amendments related to 1261. Any thoughts on how that will go, or that is, we'll find out when they get to the discussion?
That's a great question. There are several. So yeah, a couple of key senators fired several involving striking certain language related to even the megawatt level from projected, replacing it with actual. There's a waiver of a private facility only serving the industrial customer to be approved by the Public Power Board. There's another waiver of eminent domain that must be approved by the Public Power Entity Board. There's also another waiver or another amendment involving if a contract is breached by the private electric supplier, public power regains the eminent domain authority. There's another amendment that requires the private electric facility to submit an annual environmental impact report to the public power entity they've contracted with. There's another amendment that limits the contracts under the bill to 5 years, at which time it may be renewed. And that renewal must be approved by the Public Power Entity Board. there's another amendment that disallows any privately owned generation facilities subject to a contract under this bill from receiving any tax incentives from the Advantage Act or the Imagine Nebraska Act. And I may not even give given you the all-inclusive list. There's also an amendment presented at the hearing involving a workforce requirement, ensuring a certain level of wages, as well as one that was filed early on by Senator Takei as a placeholder, more so if things should need to be amended. So several amendments. We're not taking any formal positions, so to speak. We're certainly in the rotunda and therefore offering education and awareness. I know we were approached related to some of those public power board approval aspects, which we're aligned with and okay with. Anything else to comment on, Tim or
I
Javier?
would comment, from our perspective, most, if not all of the amendments do nothing other than strengthen the public power position. They may be problematic for the developer and getting credit and doing all of the things that they want to do, but from our perspective, none of them are problematic from protecting the public power structure. So
Yeah, so I guess to your point, we don't have positions on them. Specifically interested in prevailing wages or environmental impacts assessments being required. Those do not directly impact us, but would impact the project developer or the customer and the potential costs there. So
I think especially there's one that limits the length of the contract.
Yeah.
To 5 years. I think that's probably the one that's most problematic for the developer, but again, that's not our problem to solve. None of the amendments dilute the public powers structure that we had originally in that bill. So from that perspective, it's benign.
Sure. Appreciate that. And then I guess last question, back to the discussion of eminent domain. There's a difference between it allows for a waiver of eminent domain or it requires a waiver of eminent domain. And I guess from our side, a project like this in our territory, we would anticipate board action on the waiver of eminent domain and board action on agreements for PPA associated with generation. Is that right?
That's right. So this is the conversation that I've had with the board before about if there was such a project, if we had a contract in front of us that the board would have to approve. What this motion does, it basically translates that conversation that I had with the OPPD board into statutes. But it aligns with the original intent that the board would have to approve.
And then lastly, on the other end, board approval for PPA for the energy. The other side would be the energy services agreement with the customer. That is generally not something that is a board approval type of item. Is there any intention or discussion about that being different based on the potential impact of the size of the projects here, or that remains a delegated management authority type of action?
That today remains a delegated management action similar to the line extension agreements. But again, that one we wouldn't be in a position to sign an energy supply agreement if we don't have the capacity, right? And the capacity comes through the contract that will be approved.
So then, all right, well, I'm interested in, board action related to these things going forward. So I appreciate the discussion now. And I guess we'll see how things go in Lincoln and then what next steps we would potentially take if there was a project that was brought to us that might be subject to what's discussed in 1261 and then our actions that we just discussed. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Great. Okay, so LB 964, this was introduced by Senator Bostar. It establishes that a political subdivision hold a public hearing prior to any sale or lease of real property owned by the political subdivision or any purchase of real property by that political subdivision. There's some language in here how the public hearing must be held within 2 months. The purchase must be completed within 2 months post a public hearing. So, and if that doesn't occur, a new hearing would have to occur. For those reasons, OPPD opposed that bill. It's been amended a few times now. There's any purchases over $50,000 be an action item for the board and could add several other action items affiliated with that. And we think this could impact a lot of efficiencies. So for that reason, opposed. LB 1096, this was a bill introduced by Senator Bostar at the request of the governor. It creates Critical Infrastructure Protection Act, which prohibits government entities from entering into a contract relating to critical infrastructure with a company that is a foreign principal if the agreement allows access to certain infrastructure. So there's restrictive and onerous language in here. There was a hearing on March 5th related to tweaking a definition to fix an issue. This, you might recall, LB 644 last year was a foreign adversarial bill. This amendment fix to 1090 is included in 1096. And all utilities are generally okay with this. We're neutral at this time. LB 1255 is a Senator Bostar bill. This prohibits public power suppliers from exercising any powers of eminent domain. OPPD testified in opposition. We are now not expecting this bill to go much further. LB 413 on the next slide. This is a carryover bill, a bill that we had previously supported. It provides different criteria that allows public power districts to set not unduly discriminatory rates. We're not necessarily anticipating this to advance further this session. LB 489.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
please.
On 413, not advancing based on lack of prioritization and lack of focus at this time, or because there was opposition?
Not necessarily opposition. Yeah, to your first point, I don't believe we saw it obviously come through in terms of the priority package involving power, and we still have it on our list, of course, recognizing things could change, but we're not anticipating it at this time.
But in the future, this could be reintroduced, and we did
Absolutely.
not discover opposition that would make it unlikely to try and advance this at a future session. It's just that it didn't make the cut this time.
That's correct.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that because I think this would be very beneficial. I know we've talked about that in our potential rate making looking forward. So I'm glad to hear there was not opposition that this might come back. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. LB 489, Senator Brandt. This is a carryover bill as well. It would prohibit private transmission involving constructing, owning, operating, and maintaining future transmission lines in the state. There's an amendment out there that's being worked on. At this point, it'd have to be through some sort of committee or bill package. LB 546 is another carryover bill. This involved the Nebraska Emergency Management Agency, otherwise known as NEMA. And as it relates to ice jams and how we respond, it would basically allow us or other political subdivisions of the state that supply electricity, natural gas, water, or sewer to request an emergency proclamation from the governor without having to first go through a county or another government entity. There was some discussion that utilities can already do what the bill proposes. And as a result of that, we don't anticipate there's a vehicle to move this year. We'll continue to work with the senator and it may return next session. LB 935 allows for attorney's fees for political subdivisions among certain actions. We reviewed this bill, OPPD supports it. It's a judiciary priority bill. We'll see where this goes. LB 1003, this addresses deceptive solar sales practices and misrepresentations involving OPPD. We've supported this bill. We're going to likely be working with the senator on this well into next year to see how we can further strengthen it. Next slide, please. LB 1108. This would align bidding thresholds for cities and utilities with public power districts. It also reduces newspaper notice requirements. While we've supported this bill, there's likely no vehicle for this to fully see it through this session. LB 1145 involves the Open Meetings Act. This was rolled into a committee package, LB 596, which passed the first round and was placed on select file. There's some provisions in LB 1145 that restore some flexibility similar to the 2020 timeframe, and where boards can meet in a reasonable manner, and it's less prescriptive than the current statute. LB 1191, Senator Holstrom bill. This changes the dates for levels of employment for approved Tier 6 projects involving the Nebraska Advantage Act. This bill will be part of the 1165 bill that is a broader bill focused on economic development, changing provisions related to the key employer and jobs retention, as well as the Imagine Nebraska Act and the Site Building Development Fund. It also creates a grant program to help employers retain or attract employees. So we'll see more activity on that bill ahead. Let's see, next slide, please. LB 349. These are bills of interest that we've opposed. This is LB 349 is a carryover bill that allowed for standalone battery storage. So this bill was effectively abandoned with LB 1010 as the focus. LB 503, this was also a carryover bill from Senator Bozen. We had previously opposed due to some of the battery affiliated language. We definitely supported the energy friendly county aspect to it, incentivizing renewable projects. We don't anticipate this bill to go anywhere this session. LB 571, this was also a carryover bill. It required public power districts to have a defined benefit plan, pay cost of living adjustment to any retiree under that plan who's not eligible for Social Security. There's likely not a pathway for this bill. LB 1026, electric suppliers involving shutting down, ceasing operations, or altering the operation of a facility if customers are waiting. There's certain criteria, except if there's a retirement that's mandated by a state or federal law, or it's unsafe to operate, or the facility is damaged beyond repair due to natural disaster, or it's uneconomical. We opposed this bill. There was several opposing this bill. We don't anticipate this bill is going anywhere this session either. LB 1093 on the next slide involves the One Call Act, One Call notification system. There was some certain definitions looked at in this bill that would allow for hand digging of lines. Multiple entities oppose this. This bill's not likely to move forward. LB 1193, this adopts the nameplate capacity tax to battery storage facilities. We had no position on that necessarily, but where we did find we opposed it was related to some of the standalone battery language that was similar to LB 349. So we opposed that. As far as this bill goes, again, the focus has really been on LB 1010. And some provisions from that were incorporated within. LB 1204, this adopted the Nameplate Capacity Tax Facility Standards Act. 1204, it intended to establish some uniform standards for permitting involving renewables and battery storage facilities. It also established some standards for setbacks, noise, decommissioning, and screening. It also expanded the nameplate capacity tax to include energy storage resources, and it was introduced by Senator Klaus. This bill had a lot of opposition, especially at the hearing, primarily due to the local control issues, which is ultimately where we landed on this in terms of opposition. So we're committed to working with the senator to see if there's a good spot for this in the next year. It's function more like an interim study this year rather than a passable bill. So hopefully some of those learnings can be incorporated. LB 1259, this is the Grid Modernization Act. It originated from a cryptocurrency project looking at the state. It had some very onerous language, especially particularly to public power. OPPD opposed this, several others did as well. We don't anticipate this bill to advance. Next slide, please. LB 1027, Senator Storm bill. This was where the renewable energy facilities would go through a similar process that public power districts do to get approved in the state. And this would be through the Nebraska Power Review Board. This bill had a lot of opposition in the hearing. We were neutral on it. It's not anticipated to move forward. And then the last bill I have for you today to report out on is LB 1172. This is a Senator Holcroft bill that would require electric suppliers to maintain 75% of the dispatchable electric capacity in the generation portfolio of the electric supplier. This bill, we don't anticipate to move forward. There was a lot of confusion among the committee around what this bill did or didn't do. And we don't see a pathway ahead for it. So that wraps up the bills of interest. As a reminder, the session next month, with it concluding, we'll provide a full session summary as well as a preview of the interim. And with that, if there's any remaining questions, I would take those as well. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. On to Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to bring this item to the board and to the public. Just a little bit of background. OPPD this year is turning 80 years young. We began operations as the Omaha Public Power District on December 2nd of 1946. After we acquired the assets from the Nebraska Power Company and became a public power entity. Ever since then, we have, of course, always had the need and the support from legal services. And I believe the relationship, the official relationship with Fraser Stryker or its predecessor company goes all the way back almost 80 years, not quite, but maybe. It's hard to find those records. Fraser Stryker has been a fantastic partner, and through that firm, we have always enjoyed the support of a general counsel position. While not an official employee of the Omaha Public Power District, different senior attorneys at that firm have served in that capacity for the district and for the board. Right now, Steve Bruckner has been doing that job really, really well for many, many years, and I just have a debt of gratitude to Steve and the passion that you show, that you demonstrate day in, day out for the operations of the district. However, as time goes by, this organization has grown to a place where the place and complexity of this organization have grown to a place where I believe we have a need to have an employee of OPPD be a general counsel again, in the same capacity, doing virtually the same work that Steve does. But there's a very clear difference between having a contracted resource like Steve is today and having an internal resource where we can also do succession planning and having different type of strategy working inside of the district. So for that reason, I proposed a few months ago to the board, let's look for the first time in 80 years to not to bring a new function, it's the same function, but change the contractual arrangement where now this person would be an employee of OPPD. Let me make something very clear. We are not expanding the size of the executive team. Steve has been part of the executive team for all purposes. What we're doing is just switching the employment relationship. So I am very pleased. We had a competitive selection process. We had many applicants. I believe over 200 different applicants came in and kept our talent acquisition team very busy. Thank goodness for all the modern technology tools that allow us to go through resumes and filter. We had a very strong pool of candidates that we interviewed. We had an interviewing panel with other vice presidents, including Mr. Bruckner. And we vetted different candidates, and at the end, I selected Pete Fisher to be considered by the board on Thursday. Just a reminder, my job is to select the person, but the person is only going to come in here if the board approves their salary. So it's a dual approval process here, and so I'm bringing Pete Fisher's candidacy to the board for your consideration on Thursday. Pete has had a chance to meet with the ELT. He's had a chance to meet with board members in smaller groups. You've had a chance to talk with him. A little bit about Pete. He's currently the Associate General Counsel at Black Hills Energy. So he comes to us with existing, very robust experience in the utility sector. He's in Rapid City, South Dakota. He has also worked for a short period of time on a company, SAB Biotherapeutics, taking the company from a startup to listed in NASDAQ. And so he has that wealth of experience. but most of his career has been in different legal positions with Black Hills Energy, corporate counsel, assistant general counsel, associate corporate counsel. And then back in the 2010s, he was also an attorney at the Cutler Law Firm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He holds a JD degree from the University of South Dakota School of Law, and also has a Master's of Business Administration and a Bachelor of Business Administration from the South Dakota School of Business. He has applied, and his Nebraska bar application has been fully vetted and accepted. He is waiting to get the scheduling to take the attorney oath and file the oath certificate with the Nebraska Attorney Services Division. He's getting the scheduling with the Nebraska Supreme Court, so it's just a matter of days before he can get that. We believe that he will be fully licensed in Nebraska well before his start date. The proposal or the resolution that's in front of you has to do with Pete's proposed salary. We have negotiated and tentatively agreed. This is pending board approval. The salary range for this position is very similar to what we have on our Chief Information Officer position, where the midpoint is about $467,000. Based on Pete's experience and robust experience, not only as general counsel, but general counsel in a utility in the Midwest, he brings a lot of experience already as a general counsel and executive. So the proposal is to start his salary at 92.2% of that midpoint, which is $430,500. Pete has committed to his current employer to stay with them for about 60 days as he transitions out, which means that his starting date with us will be May 11, 2026. That's a Sunday. We always start the employees on a Sunday. And that exhausts the information I have for the board. Happy to answer any questions. Pete, the idea is for Pete to be present at the board meeting on Thursday. Have any questions of them, or ask him to speak?
Great, thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Not a question, but just a comment. In my small group interview with him, I think we were very impressed with his background and the fact that he has the varied experience of taking a private company public and all of that thing that I think most people are not aware that OPPD, I mean, we have a vice president who's in New York City now, at an important conference because we do a lot without having our ratepayers' money in jeopardy. We use our to get capital to work based on what we own. And so that kind of background, I think, is really important. I just love the fact that he has all that. He's come up through the ranks in Black Hills Energy. So I think he's a very, very strong individual in this role. Thank you.
All right, then I'll just add, thanks for the work on this and bringing it forward, and the innovation of having an in-house general counsel, but also thanks to Steve for all the assistance that I'm sure was done to get Mr. Fisher. And in the future, I think there's some plans that you've got in the works to onboard him and all that. So thank you very much. All right. So with that, I think we can move on to, if there's anything that folks want pulled off the agenda. I'll start with item number 10, please, Aaron, and then item number 9 as well. I don't think there's anything else, or if anybody has feelings otherwise, please let me know, but those seem to be, we should move to the discussion action items. All right, seeing nothing else. Thank you. And next, before we adjourn, we'll take comments from the public on items of district business. Comments in the room first, and then via WebEx. All the comments made by all parties during the meeting are a part of the official public record. I'm not seeing anyone in the room. Aaron, do we have anybody in the room to make in-person comments?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. For WebEx attendees, if you wish to make a comment, please send the meeting host a message using the chat feature or utilize the hand raise feature. Detailed instructions can be found on the OPPD website at the link shown on the screen. When I call on a member of the public to speak, please affirm that we can hear you before commencing with your comments. Please state your name, address, and the name of any organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we'll use the timer on the screen and signal you when 30 seconds remain, as well as when time is up. If you have written materials, please email them to corporatesecretary@oppd.com and they'll be received on our behalf. For all attendees, please direct your comments to me. I'll either respond to you directly or defer response to another board member or officer of the district. The board values and welcomes civil, respectful, clear, and concise communication from the public. During public comments, speakers should refrain from repetitious, profane, or irrelevant comments. Speakers shall refrain from pulling the board as such vote is not on the agenda and prohibited by the law. Do any members of the public joining via WebEx have comments on items of district business? Please send a chat to the meeting host or use the hand raise feature in WebEx. Telephone users can press *3 to raise their hand.
Any comments online?
All right, with no comments online, that's it today. Thank you, everybody, and meeting's adjourned.